Today we have Patrick Peters, who is an expert in his field of media and technology. He has a lot of great advice, especially for like startup communities, startup businesses. You might not think so, Patrick, but we do.
The jury's out.
The jury's out. Exactly. So I'm going to let you take it away, Patrick. And I think we should also start by introducing ourselves. So I'm going to call everyone out. Jan, would you like to go first?
Yeah, so I am, as I just mentioned, a former military wife. We finally settled in one place. And after working for 20 some years as a school librarian and a teacher, I realized that many of our charter schools are too small to hire a librarian, but they're missing out on the skills. So the skills that a librarian brings to the table are not putting books on shelves. And I've spent a lot of time trying to convince administrators of that, because they believe, even though they're paying me a very good salary, that I should be sitting in the library putting books on shelves. What we really do is teach information literacy skills. And those are the real life soft skills that administrators know that we need, but they haven't quite made that connection. And businesses are definitely aware of the fact that our kids need them. So when I was teaching and working as a library, it was always, well, we'll do the research project after the test because it's not tested or we don't know how to evaluate it. So the business I started is all about going to the teeny tiny little charter schools who don't have a librarian and letting them rent my library skills without actually having a physical library on campus.
Nice. That's awesome.
Definitely unique.
Yeah.
Well, and marketing is my big problem. It's how to convince charter schools that they need to pay me to come on campus and teach those skills, when in some cases they've actively made the decision to not spend the money on a library.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a tough marketing job.
If you could bring your own library, that would, like a bookmobile.
Actually, you really don't need to, because what the librarian brings is not, a collection of books is just that. It's a collection of books. The ability to navigate information in the 21st century is a skill that our students need, and it's one that is technically in the TEKS, the Texas Educational Knowledge and Skills, but is not addressed in most schools. And I've worked in 20 different schools. So yeah, same story in every single one.
Yeah. Dee, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hey, everybody. I am the marketing manager for a chiropractor here in Denton called the Spinal Decompression and Chiropractic Center. And I've been with them 6 years, and my background's in media and marketing and advertising and sales. And the chiropractor has been in business 22 years. We've got 3 chiropractors on staff now, about 12 staff. Anyway, things were really great and rocking before COVID. I was doing lots of health fairs and teaching lots of classes about chiropractic, and then COVID hit and I've had to really pivot and do a lot more focus online and stuff like that. So I'm just going through some of those changes. So anyway, glad to be here.
Nice to see you again. Donna, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, I'm Donna Durbin. I have I taught ESL for many years and recognized that most of my non-native English speakers knew to read, write, and spell in English, but they couldn't, when they would speak, people couldn't understand them. So I specialize in pronunciation and accent reduction for international professionals. And I now have an online course that is all video based, and then with a live coaching session to help people from all over the world learn to speak English. And I am a very strong user of the library and encourage my clients all the time to use the online learning sources that are free on the library. And many of them do not know about it. And so Houston has a great program with lynda.com and Gale courses and the great courses, all these kinds of accesses that the library holds that they don't know how to find or research. So I'm always telling them, use the library.
And ESL, I mean, the more you read, we know there's a huge connection between reading, maybe perhaps not so much with speaking. But yeah, if you can read, then that gives you the ability to concentrate on this.
Well, basically, I teach them the alphabet, and I teach them how to break the words down so that they can read. And so
we don't have in school that we should.
Right, exactly. pronunciation. So anyway, I love what I do, and I've really been, the courses that I've taken with Stoke has been so great that I was looking forward to this. So I got up early and cleaned up so I could come.
And I just discovered them, but I'm really excited about the idea of being able to talk to other people who are, I guess, you all don't sound like you're struggling. I think I'm struggling, but.
Well, I've been
Everybody's
self-employed for most of my life, and what I realized is that I couldn't find a group of like online course creators or people that are entrepreneurs. So that's really what I'm hoping this is, you know, reach out and exchange information to help.
Yep. Well, I'm excited about this.
Back to you, Mari.
Who's next? Let's have George. Would you like to go next? You don't have to put your video on if you don't want to.
Sure. Sorry about that, everyone. I'm actually very happy to report I'm finally off the freeway up to UNT from Frisco. And it's been what's normally about a 24-minute commute has been an hour and a half today. So I'm in a really good mood because I'm going 35 miles an hour. But anyway, I am the PR marketing guy for UNT Transportation. And I've been here about a year, and my background is almost exclusively in sports, the sports industry, mainly professional sports. So quite a big career change about a year ago. And this is my second event with you guys. I did one in person. That's how long ago it was, I believe last winter before COVID. So I'll join you guys in video momentarily as soon as I can get into my office.
All right, sounds good. Sky, would you like to go next? Is it Sky or Ski? We can move on to the next person. John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is John. I recently found myself in a career change. Had spent 10 months in the hospital last year after chemo and radiation, and my whole world changed. And so what I'm looking for, basically nobody follows you home from a hospital and says, oh, by the way, this is how you get the cap off a thing of toothpaste. This is how you close the door behind you. This is how you open the refrigerator door. The first time I fell was my first morning at home after being gone for 10 months. And I was trying to do the same thing I've done exactly the same way for the last 66 years. Put them on one leg at a time. And that's when I fell, because nobody said, you can't do that. So what I'm trying to develop is an online community of people that have developed their own solutions for living with their new reality. Everything from how do I wash the bottom of my feet, cracking open a bottle of water. I encourage all of you to try this experience. If you're right-handed, put your dominant hand in your pocket and then grab a bottle of water or a thing of toothpaste and try to get the cap off it with only one hand. It's extremely difficult, but there are ways to compensate for that. So that's kind of what I want to always, to get information from the community and collect it in a central source and get people to contribute the things that they've developed.
Thank you for sharing that, John, and that's a great idea. I hope that we can be a good sounding board for you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That doesn't
definitely.
sound like something that we don't normally even think about until it hits us. But yeah, it sounds like you have a great attitude, John. I'm glad you came through it, but I think your attitude to help others while you're struggling yourself is amazing.
After 5 strokes, you find yourself where things have changed. My life has changed so much, and I had no idea. I was really not prepared to come home. And there's no business in doing that. An occupational therapist and physical therapist make sure you're strong and you can move your arms, but they don't teach you the life skills. How to deal with a stove. Stove is lethal for me.
Yeah.
Because you have to lean over a hot burner to turn it off. So all kinds of things that you learn.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, and then our last introduction to do is Lelania. Are you here, Lelania?
I am. Hi, y'all.
Hi.
Give me just a
You cut out a little bit.
second to. Yes.
You're kind of in and out a little bit.
Okay. Maybe is this better?
Yeah,
Hopefully.
this is good. Mhm.
Okay. I am like howdy and welcome, and I'm excited to be here. I am a wellness advocate with doTERRA Essential Oils, and so I teach people the value of natural plant medicine. And so because of COVID, I can no longer meet them in person. Normally it's a knee-to-knee type of deal. I'm also a single parent. And so even though some normal life activities have resumed for some people, I don't feel like I can kind of venture back out there again because I don't want to risk myself getting sick or like bringing it and passing it on to my daughter. And so trying to find ways specifically like course creation, and like I have the idea, but in terms of like the technical component, like I know how to use my computer, I know how to use my phone. I think I'm a little farther ahead on the game on some of that stuff, but in terms of professional and like being able to create my vision, in a manner that, not to say I'm a perfectionist, but I think I'm a perfectionist. And so I have some high aspirations. So I want to make sure to be able to not waste my time and limited resources, right, as a single parent. And so I'm hoping to be able to partner with somebody that knows a little bit more. I was recently brought to my attention, Amy Porterfield does a lot in the world of like digital marketing and online course creation. And so I did like her 30-day boot camp and like got through 5 days. And then of course you had to start creating stuff and I had no idea where to start. A couple of the people from that course have kind of reached out, they want to charge a fortune for it. And I'm a relatively intelligent person. I'm happy to pay for something, of course. But I think just given a little bit of instruction and I can probably figure it out, but I'm excited to meet with other people. I like people in general, right? And so I love hearing everybody's stories. I think it's all like, and I'm a activator by nature, so I want to help everybody like figure out how to do their stuff. I'm classically trained as a graphic designer. I've done all of that I had my own small business before that. And the health component of the natural medicine really has like kind of lit me on fire. And so I can see each of you guys and like kind of want to be able to help y'all in some way, whether it's with my design skills or my personal skills or like whatever it is. So that's where I am with joining Stoke. And of course, having the office space has been immeasurably. I've been here for about 2 weeks, and just being able to work without a 4-year-old interrupting me every 5 minutes to give me a hug while I love them doesn't get much work done during the day. So that's where I'm at.
Awesome, thanks. Alrighty, and then Sky, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sorry, it's Ski.
Ski,
Sullivan.
okay, I wasn't sure.
That's all right. You just don't call me late for supper, basically. I'm the senior marketing director for NCTC, and we've enjoyed a real great relationship, I think, with Stoke, especially when we opened our new campus there in downtown Denton. We make a lot of efforts, especially in view of how budgets have been curtailed during the pandemic, et cetera, to integrate with the community, to listen and see if there's things that we can be doing. We have this wealth of people. I mean, we have experience, we have stories, we have expertise in so many different areas, and we really work to try and put people in touch with one another. If we feel that there's a need in the community, we've done it with a number of different organizations in the community, but we're very, very interested in making certain that people know that we are here. My background is I ran my own agency for 20 plus years, and then got the calling for higher ed a few years ago, and have had a really wonderful time bringing, you know, the private sector into higher ed thinking, because they are two different worlds in as much as how they approach things, certainly from a marketing standpoint, and yet you will, if you start to peel away and ask the questions, what you find out is that they want to be competitive in the marketplace. They want to get the message out. They obviously want to increase enrollment and increase their reach, but often really don't even know, you know, what those paths are about. They often hire outside agencies, and when I started with NCTC, I saw a string of outside agency relationships that I've found some serious flaws with, just because the expertise in-house wasn't there, and I would say in some ways the interest wasn't there to really follow up and ask those tough questions. And you know, and having been on the dark side, Patrick, he'll appreciate that, but you know, I know that there are certain agencies that will take advantage of a client that's naive or really not understanding what the mix is all about. And so I've been able to really take our in-house group and make it into an agency, and to really take our efforts to another level. I feel like we're reaching more people now, and we're starting to see better responses, but there's still so much to be done. And I often feel like we don't reach out enough to really ask better questions, to tap into community resources, to find people that can help, you know, our students, because ultimately that's the goal. You know, we can say, hey, that, you know, from a marketing standpoint, we want to grow the institution, we want to spread the word, we want to increase brand awareness, we can do yada, yada, yada. But ultimately, what has to happen at the end of every day is we have to touch a lot more lives and help people, you know, better their position to get what they need to, you know, not just get a job, but maybe get a career. Lots of people have jobs. But, you know, when you look at that, it's like, are they underemployed? Is it meaningful? Are they finding, you know, pathways that really bring, you know, that help elevate all the levels? So anyway, that by way of a long way around the circle, that's my introduction, but I'm happy to be here this morning.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. Thank you. And that was a great introduction. All right, Patrick, I will give you the floor.
Well, I just want to keep listening to everybody else.
I know.
So,
Give you the floor, as in let's open it up for discussion. If you guys have any questions for Patrick, feel free to chime in.
yeah, let me do a quick intro. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but obviously, you know, I'm Socratic. Like, the only thing I really know is that I don't know anything. First of all, I loved hearing everybody's introduction, and I was just writing notes as fast as I could because there are things I wanted to take away. And every time I thought I had like the top line takeaway, then I'd make 4 more notes and circle something. But, you know, it's something I do know for certain is that during these times, during this pandemic, everybody is under immense stress, has had to learn and change and do new things, maybe not to George's degree. I think it was George. I'm sorry if I'm mixing people and stories. But the thing that I think helps all of us, whether it's business or life or anything, is empathy. And, you know, trying to imagine each other's difficulties and struggles throughout, whether you're trying to imagine a customer or your significant other or your kids or somebody who cut you off in traffic. It's something I've been going back to for years. Like, is the more you can get in somebody else's head, the better. Putting these psychoanalysis aside for a moment, about me quickly, so that you know what I know something about and don't, is I'm the veteran of 3 startups, going all the way back to 1989. The first, and they've all had to do with media, data, and technology to some degree. The first one we started from scratch and took public in like 90 something, 94, 95. The second one was in the early 2000s. We, .com boom, started it, spun it quickly, and exited. This one we've been with for a long time. And actually, we were not the founders of this company. We were brought in by the venture capitalists who funded the company 20 years ago to manage it. So right now, we deal, for the last decade or so, we've dealt with big data and media and marketing. So, we basically work with big brands, political campaigns, agencies, and people who make TV content, the programmers, to think of TV like digital. And we have the data, we collect the data ourselves. We built technology to do so. Basically do all the things that creep everybody out, match households, find targets, figure out responses, attribution, all those things. And our clients range from, we actually, we plan the TV campaigns for the Biden campaign right now, which is great. We got our start in presidential politics in 2012 with the Obama campaign. We work both sides of the aisle. People like NBC, Universal, Zales Jewelers, who's part of Signet brand. We try to help anybody who spends a lot of money, and there is a lot of money spent in the TV business, figure out how to use TV in a good way, in an efficient way versus a really inefficient way. So the things I know are a lot about startups, a lot about raising money, growing companies. I'm primarily a marketer and a storyteller when you get down to it. And I know a lot about data and media. So that's me. I'm very proud to be part of this group. And for everybody that told their story, I wanted to kind of wade in and be like, oh, have you thought about this? What do you know about that? Tell me more about that. Besides empathy, the other thing I'm a big believer in is that everybody has something to teach me. So I look at every interaction as an opportunity. Like, that person knows a lot of stuff I don't. And I think it'd be cool to always just like learn and hear more. So long introduction, sorry. I return the talking pen to the floor.
Anybody want to jump in first?
I'd like to ask the question. I know that I have continued to do everything myself, and I'm recognizing that I can never scale my business if I don't learn to either hire virtual assistants or figure out some of the marketing part. And I took a little class yesterday. I'm doing a lot of webinars online now, and recognizing I don't necessarily want to learn all that stuff. Yeah. I'd rather have somebody else do it. But having done all of this on a shoestring, I want to find enough to be able to hire the people that will do the job and understand enough about what they're doing to make sure I can manage if they scale my business and I don't know how to handle. And I think that's holding me back. I'm afraid if it gets too big, too fast, I'm not going to be able to manage it.
Yeah, we our first and second company, we went from 0 to 100 people in a year in both cases. And so the things that I always preach, one is, as an entrepreneur, you get pretty good at a lot of stuff, and then you also are probably a control freak by nature because you've chosen to do this. Not you, all of us. But the thing to, I think, fall back to is, what is the thing that you're really good at that you cannot and will not replace? And actually a very young person said this to me about 2 years ago. He said, I'm trying to figure out what my genius is and then get rid of all the things that I'm not really, really good at. Like, what am I uniquely good at? Keep that. Everything else, find somebody who's uniquely good at those things. And I think that's a really, that's a really great way to think about it. What is the thing you can't replace that you do, whether it's knowledge or a skill or a point of view that you really say, like, you know what, I'm probably, as good as somebody gets at that thing. And you do that. When it comes to hiring, our trick was always, it's easy when you're hiring, so like when you're the person who is talking to the interviewing and deciding to bring them on board or engage or whatever it might be, super. Once you get one step away from that, then it gets a little tricky because somebody else is doing that for you. And that's where process has to take over from gut, right? Like, you can interview somebody and say, we fit, they're going to do a great job, we can work together, all those things. But as soon as that person is hiring, then you need processes involved. So you can somehow, not break the scale by having somebody else hire people that don't fit your vision and your organization.
Well, does anyone use virtual assistants?
I do.
Because I guess I'm doing a lot of listening to podcasts, and I've used them for subtitles for my videos, but I haven't used them as far as like a project manager or that kind of thing. So it'd be nice to find a group of people that like can share some of this, what they've learned by doing it.
I have got to the stage of thinking about what a virtual assistant does, but I am so brand new that money is extremely tight. So I feel like right now, I know I definitely need help with marketing. I have a great idea. It's just getting it out there and getting people to realize what it is that a librarian does. And
There's that word again.
Yeah, it's getting beyond, but you have to start somewhere when you're working with schools, because they know what they think they know what a librarian is.
Right.
I think the key
requirement for it in the TEAC, so that has to be a starting point, but the marketing is very difficult. And even asking somebody else to do that when most people really don't even know what it is that I do would be very difficult. But it would be nice to have a hand with, how do I get my head wrapped around this whole marketing thing when that is absolutely clearly not my forte?
I'd have you start with a YouTube channel and start describing what it is you do.
Right, and that's actually what I'm doing right now is working on a series of YouTubes. And I already set up an LMS, because one of the other things I'm going to be doing is teaching German online as well. So I figured with an LMS I could offer information literacy classes.
So Jean, you're going in lots of different directions.
Well, the German classes, I've already taught German online for 10 years. I have all of the lessons ready. That's just like a little extra, since I'm buying an LMS, putting those lessons up there. I've been doing that for years. So that hopefully will just create additional stream of income so that I'm not totally dependent on one thing, and give me time to develop the other, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right, it is a lot, but my son's gone from home. My daughter-in-law is hopefully going to be joining me. They just had a baby 8 weeks ago, so I'm a proud new grandma.
Congrats.
But as I develop the business, she's going to jump in. She's also a teacher, but she's more at the elementary level. So between us, and she's French speaker as opposed to German speaker. So yeah, we've got it covered. And right in the middle of this, my husband decided to buy a franchise. So he just quit work last week.
Why not?
Why not?
Well, at least with a franchise, you have some sort of backup with marketing. They're already there to, you're paying a fortune for it, but they're there to help you but when you're doing this totally and completely by yourself. And Donna, you probably had the same issues. You're doing something that clearly nobody else is doing.
Well, I started building my email list and connections years ago.
Right.
So I've slowly, edged out to doing this full time by myself. So it's, it's been a learning curve, but was a self-employed artist for many years. So The marketing part is something that I realized if you don't have visibility, if nobody, what my saying was, it doesn't matter how good you are if nobody knows you exist.
Right. And if nobody knows what the skills are, because like I say, the traditional librarian, people really do think of as putting books on shelves.
Mm.
But Texas requires a teacher librarian in the public schools. They don't require it in the charter schools. But it's just shifting that mindset to a librarian is not just about the library, but retaining the title. I know John suggested that I get rid of the title, but I'm not sure that that's possible.
Well, you might think about doing lunch and learns for the schools and do virtual lunch and learns.
Ooh, I like that idea.
Because then you can, you know, set it up with lots of schools at the same time, put the thing out and then have them sign up for the virtual meeting, and you can explain what it is, why it's so important.
Yeah, I like that idea. I hadn't thought about that for the teachers. Although right now, teachers, even if they're back in school, the school I was at, there's no lunch. Teachers have to eat lunch in the classrooms with the kids.
Well, for their, do they have to do their planning hour? Don't they have like a planning hour or planning time?
They're teaching online and teaching the kids that are in class at the same time. So you've got some areas where a teacher is actually teaching one class online while supervising kids who are taking other classes online in the same classroom.
I was thinking about the principals. I was thinking about the people that are going to hire you.
Right.
You know, the teachers aren't the ones that are going to be able to hire you.
Right. So there's two ways of looking at that. The teachers are the ones that push for professional development. Every school I've worked in, it's the teachers are saying, hey, we need PD on this. Sometimes it's the principal, but not always.
Is there a way, and I don't know anything about your industry, is there a way for you to apply so that you can actually provide the continuing education credits to them so that they can take it?
I'm going through that right now with CEA. Okay. I thought I had it all squared away, filled out their form, sent it off, and then with all of this BLM stuff, I now have to submit for every single class that I want to teach. I have to submit a single lesson plan and get it approved.
Well, I mean, that even though it's difficult, I think that would make sense. And then one of the things you might want to,
that I have to,
it's time.
Yep.
Yeah. One of the things too that you might want to think about is making like an opt-in piece that's free, that hits up teachers, marketing directly to teachers, that teaches them a little bit about what you do, and then say, oh, hey, by the way, if you want continuing education credits for XYZ, you know, please visit my website or whatever. And so you give them something free, right? That's information you already know. And then that's when you plug your course. And so you can start with one course, and then once you get it recorded, it's automated, right? So you don't have to go back and mess with it. So then that gives you time to then create and apply for the CE credits for the other class. Right. And that's what I was going to say to Donna, is anything that you can automate, like whether it's a virtual assistant, whether it's your like CRM, whether it's your accounting, whatever it is, if you can automate something so that you're taking something off of your plate so that you can have more time for, like Patrick said, your thing, like your X, whatever X is, right?
Yeah. Patrick, do you have any insights?
You know, these are all really good tactical ideas, and you have to kind of cycle through them and figure out what works, right? I do believe, whether it's, you know, one person in a room or a big company, my experience is when you start, and if you work with an agency, I'm probably going to get a smackdown here in a minute, but if you work with an agency, the first thing you should demand from them, or that you should build yourself, and I have examples of this that I'm happy to share, is a very tight brand brief. And brief is an operable word, right? Like 2 paragraphs, but and it needs to be written down rather than just imagined, because it's the thing that you go back to all the time, that when you're like, well, should I do this, or how should I do this? And the brand brief basically says, this is what I do, this is why it's good, these are the differences. You know, it's not a marketing plan, it's not a business plan, it's not a, you know, swag analysis or anything like that. It's just a tight little 2 paragraphs that is your touchstone. And
sounds like a capability statement.
I'm thinking more of an elevator speech written down.
Not really, because you're, and I recognize what you're saying, but having been hit with all of those things like 10 million times, it's not a pitch. is something that you could hand to anybody that comes in your company or any agency or any marketer that says, this is what we do. This is why it's different. This is how we want to present ourselves to people. You know, this is how we imagine ourselves. And it's brief. And
I think there is, and correct me if I'm wrong, something that Stoke uses. It's called the Golden Circle by Simon Sinek. So you go with, let's see, maybe I can screen share something. You do the why, the how, and the what of your company. So the what you do, how you do it, and then why you do it. We use that as our touchstone, kind of, you know, whenever I have an idea for an event, or you know, Lacey has a marketing idea, we kind of go back to that and see if it aligns.
It's close, and there's a fine line between all these things that are like, this is our reason, this is our, you know, core values, things like that, versus this is a thing I can go back to. And when I think about earned, owned, or paid media, this is what I go to that says, is this a good graphic? Is this the right language? Is this the right message? So it circles back to that. It's less of a, you know, like corporate statement, goal statement, or anything, you know, it's more concrete than that.
Do you have a sample? You said you had a sample.
I do. How can I actually like share it?
Yes, let me, well, we can share your screen. You can also put it in the chat if it's a link, but right now your screen share is enabled.
Uh-oh.
If you'd like to share your screen.
Yeah, give me a second to find.
No problem.
One.
And I just dropped the link of the matter that I was talking about in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
One quick side note, I just discovered some great LinkedIn learning classes for those of you that have access to that. I just watched one 2 or 3 days ago, and it was refining your elevator pitch. And I respect what Patrick just said about a brand brief is different than an elevator pitch. But, you know, if you don't know where to start, I think there's some good ways to outline that and kind of get to the, you know, the why, how, what. I've admittedly not been a LinkedIn Learning fan, and they've revamped it and I love it. So LinkedIn Learning, if you guys can access it, has some great half-hour how-tos.
Great. I didn't know about that.
That's actually free on our library in Houston. Under there, they have a LinkedIn, they have lynda.com. So a lot of those courses are the same as in LinkedIn Learning, but they're free. So
nice.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And you see something that says Fourth Wall Media brand brief?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure you didn't see me shopping for a new puppy or anything like that. Yeah, so it's really basic, you know, but you need to think through it to simplify it, right? To crystallize it. So it's a vision, mission, values. And you feel free to screen cap this or steal it. A quick competitors and customers, who they are, the advantages you have. And the focus and differentiation. And it's a starting point. It's a close cousin to so many things. And it has a tendency, the hardest part is making it small, right? Because everybody wants to say, oh, well, we're going to build now we need this and this. And it's like, no, that's not the job of this thing. But one of the ways we've operated is if you build this, you can always go back to it. And then you drive for people thinking about marketing. We've always broken it into buckets of earned, owned, and paid. So paid is advertising, earned is something somebody else says about you, and owned is any of your blogs or posts or anything you create that you can drive people to.
Can you go back to the first page again?
Sure.
Number 1. You were moving too fast.
Sorry.
Just a screen save. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. So you see how like that vision, you can get to an elevator pitch pretty quickly. Though an elevator pitch in our experience is very much, I'm going to solve this problem. And if I solve this problem, these things are going to happen. And the way I solve this problem is by doing A, B, and C. And then that should, then there's a whole story about turning that into a pitch deck and an operational plan, because it should flow through from end to end in all regards. But, I feel like, especially, I think the conversation about librarians is a really great use case, a really great thought problem, right? Because your first job is to re-educate people about what librarians actually do.
Right.
So on one hand, people go, librarian, cool. You don't have to teach them that there is such a thing, but your first job is like, this is what librarians really do. And I immediately imagined that question and pictures of people that do not look like a stereotypical librarian, right? And it's like, this is about managing information, which is the most valuable thing you could do today. Great. That's a different animal, and it belongs in the technology world, not this idea of a book being placed on a shelf. It's not following books in history. So
would maybe renaming herself actually engage more people?
I don't know. I think there's this is all, jabber at this point, but like, what is a librarian? I think you keep librarian, but it's like, what is a new librarian? What's a 21st century librarian?
The big focus I've been looking at for this week, and please tell me if you think this is dumb, is that I really kind of got to a level last week where it's like, I cannot do this. What am I doing? Why don't I just go get a job? But then I thought the real reason that you need a librarian is to teach the soft skills. So when you teach a research class, your students are learning time management. They're learning how to find information. They're developing confidence. They know how to figure out whether something is true or not true. They know how to check the veracity of something. They know how to go back and pull a picture off social media and find out if it is what it says it is. Yeah. Those are all skills that are easily transferable. So
have you got those written down in bullet points?
I have got that. I started out with a massive mind map, and I'm slowly coming down to the realization that my focus has to be to get people to buy into hiring me to teach those people skills that principals are starting to realize. So the last school I was at, I hate to say this, they totally took away deadlines. You could turn your work in at any time, because otherwise, if you get a low grade, their whole thing was on the social emotional learning, that let's not make the students feel bad. So there are no more deadlines. Students can turn work in whenever they want. And as a result, they're completely missing out on all of those soft skills that were sort of in the curriculum and are no longer. And that's the second school I've worked in that has done that with this. They're calling it standards-based grading, where all they want to look at is, did you achieve the standard in the subject? So I really do think that some principals are starting to realize those soft skills are vital. And business owners definitely, I mean, there's a lot of places out there teaching soft skills. So obviously it's something that business owners want. So why are we not doing it in school? So I think that's where my focus has to be, is that's what the librarian brings, is those non-tested soft skills.
Yeah, and I think that especially in the professional world, like, I understand the perspective of the social emotional learning, no deadlines, but you're always going to have deadlines as an adult.
Right. I don't understand. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
There's a happy medium there.
Right.
Yeah.
It's one of the things when you translate all of this into like sales materials, which is ultimately, where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, I come back to empathy. Like, okay, so what is the value? What's the thing that is going to change for, your customer,
right,
that you can speak to? you know, everything else. We had a conversation recently about somebody who said, well, you know, our business, they did like this stuff, right? They had a great business, but it was all about their website, you know, and they wanted to do a lot of press and PR around the fact that they had a new website. And one of the things we've learned and believe is like, nobody cares that you have a new website, right? It's like, you know, it's the most wasted PR and marketing effort ever. If there's something that happens because of that, that's great. If it brings value to their customers, great. But you've got to get to this point, like what matters to them versus, you know, if it's as simple as, you know, more kids get hired or do better work or whatever it is, that's different. But it seems to me like just changing, and this is easier said than done, but what is a librarian is.
Yeah, and that really is the essence of what I'm doing, is trying to help people, especially principals, understand that the librarian is not the 1950s tweed wearing, that we really have. I mean, I teach green screen videos. We teach a lot of technology. We teach kids how to manage their time using Trello. I mean, literally, you do not physically have to be in the school to teach these anymore.
But you're an information expert is what you are.
And that's what we need to make kids. But what's good about being an information expert, is the way I'm looking at it, is being an information expert gives you the skills that you need to succeed in the 21st century world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And use that right there. Use what you just said as your tagline.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to my schooling, you know, in middle school, high school, whatever. And what you're doing sounds like a combination of librarian and BCIS teacher. BCIS is Business Computer Information Systems.
Okay.
So
yeah,
you know, we learned the things that you're talking about, but this is in one package. And, you know, I think that that's quite a draw. They're getting two teachers for the, you know, in one person. That might also be a, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the schools need it, but the schools don't have the budget for the most part, but professional companies do, industries do, corporations do. And they get their young employees that have no soft skills at all.
Yep, and I read something yesterday on, there's actually a site called the Soft Skills Association that was put together to take a look at this. And they had a quote from 1915, which really caught my eye, that said 85% of your job success is based on your soft skills.
They hire you because of your technical skills. They keep you because of your people skills, your soft skills.
But these days, the interviews have changed so much. A lot of times they really are looking for soft skills.
They are.
But one of the things I did in school was I taught kids to make websites that highlighted their soft skills, so that I took a school and said, okay, you think you're studying history. In reality, you're learning time management. You're learning how project management, you're taking a big month-long project and splitting it down into smaller projects. You're evaluating what you do and how well you do it. You're going back and using, you know, all of those things are soft skills, and they should be taught in the library. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And a website that showcases your soft skills instead of your, even if they never show it to anybody, they're starting to think, okay, I'm not just studying history. It's not just geography. It's not just science. What they really truly are studying are the skills that are not graded, which is the how to put them all together.
Yeah. And I think another big one is learning how to research.
Right.
Like you were talking about before.
Yeah, just the information cycle, knowing whether something is, you know, brand new news, primary information, something that's been looked at, knowing who's responsible for gathering information.
I think maybe
validated
with one of our teachers, because she would send people to a university to get information to a university website called OWL to get information from MLA, and I'm like, just go to the MLA website. And she was an English teacher, but didn't know they had one. And that's just having kids sit down and ask the right question is the first thing, and think about where information might be stored so that they go directly to the most appropriate source.
And I think what you're offering is also very important, because you know, when I was a student, when I was younger, the internet wasn't such a thing. So, you know, we did library research and everything, but now kids research primarily on the internet, and that's
And Google. They
not
Google
great because there's too
Sorry,
much
that's
information.
hard to believe that you had to do the real research in the
I don't know,
library.
I did
You
floppy
seem so
disks.
young to me. It's like,
I know, I did floppy disks in elementary school.
Well, you look a lot younger than what you apparently are. 'cause
Thank you.
went out.
Thank you.
Wow.
that's what I guess I'm saying. It's like-
I know what a floppy disk is.
I mean, when I graduated from high school in 1978, computers as we know them today did not even exist.
I remember using a first computer, and it was
Right.
a long time after that.
I remember my first word processor and thinking like, wow, this is amazing. And I was the only, I asked to go on a course to learn how to use it because they got one in the hospital I was working in. And they were just basically, sure, you want to do that? Like, absolutely.
So Patrick, I have a question. When you start working with people, do you help expand their vision as far as really maybe where their appropriate audience is?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, because I hear Jan and I'm thinking maybe she needs to, I mean, part of my goal was looking at who has, at first I was teaching college students because they were the ones that I was around, and realized they don't show up for their appointments and they don't have the budget, they don't have the money. So I started looking at professionals and then corporations because they have the professional development, you know, they have the learning and development program. So I've really had to shift where I'm putting my attention so that I can make a living doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So you're saying, just to make sure I understand this right, not look at charter schools to provide services to them, but to look at other people that require the soft skill
I
services?
think there's
Absolutely.
lots of professionals out there and corporations that need.
Right. And that could be very well be, I mean, like I said, I only started this 8 weeks ago. I'd been thinking about it for 2 years, had not planned on COVID, had also not planned on my husband buying a franchise in the middle of it. So yeah, I'm thinking it is possible that there's definitely other resources where people would pay the money, but there's also a lot more competition in that area. There are a lot of—
Don't think that way. Don't think that way. That's limiting. Don't think that way.
Competition equals validation.
Right.
If you're the only person, if you're the only person doing something, either you truly are first.
And that's hard.
or
I
it's
am
bad.
hard to do, but,
Right.
and what I do, I mean, what I have been doing for the past 20 years is trying to teach research skills. I haven't always been able to do it in schools in the way, I mean, I've gone from instructional technologist back into the library, back to instructional technology. But I hadn't really thought, when I started this, I really was looking at charter schools because there are a lot of them that want the librarian, but just don't, you know, if you've only got 300 kids in your first 2 years, you do not have the money to pay a librarian.
Yeah. We, you know, in the data business and in the media business, and we struggle with this. We've had people come through the door quite a bit, young people typically, not always though. And the point being, this idea of like telling stories with data, right, requires assembling certain things that fit together to create a narrative.
Right.
But you do have to say, what do I need? Where does it come from? Is that the right thing? How does that fit with this? Does that validate this? I've imagined 3 marketing pieces for you. You know, the first is like,
maybe we need to, I mean,
pick the librarian, right? You have all these different pictures. The second is this fire hose of information. And I think that's the thing that I can imagine political campaigns, businesses, anybody over the age of 8, really, that's just like, there's all this stuff. How do I sort through it and understand what's good, bad, different, assemble all that information and digest it, right? And that's our struggle right now, whether it's
huge.
You know,
Yeah.
bad information out on the web, or telling stories, or just assembling news, whatever it might be. It's chronic, right? Like it's a real problem. And that's what you do. So there's a lot of people, you may speak to them differently, but if you say, you know, the thing I do is this, and then for you, I do this. For you, I do this. You know, the value is different maybe. But go back to that core of like, what you really do is teach people how to manage and understand information.
Right.
Cool.
You know,
That's hard.
if I may, one thing I would suggest too is don't ignore, I think, a core market for what you do, and that is these corporations, these companies, these institutions and organizations that have not only grant dollars, but private funds that they devote specifically to helping others learn. I mean, I see this at NCTC all the time. I mean, the amount of grant dollars that flow through are just ridiculous. There are dollars out there. You might be able to set up, you know, an A and a B in terms of how you're doing your marketing and spend X amount of your time sharing your mission with those types of institutions, so that you then also have funding to come into your charter schools and others. And believe me, if you come in and you say, I have X amount of dollars that I can work with, and you have to match this, you can actually tap into those resources, because now it isn't as difficult for them to take on.
That's a great idea.
That
I
type
love
of,
that idea. Yes.
Well, I mean, about literacy and stuff like that, you know, there's so much out there that is already established, but doesn't have maybe the resource, the knowledge that you have.
Right. So information and media literacy is a big focus. So whereas librarians used to concentrate on literacy, can you read, can you find a book? Now we concentrate on information and media literacy. So can you find something and can you interpret it correctly? Are you looking at the bias? Are you understanding the purpose that somebody has created this information? And it may be that you're looking at it, but not really understanding that you're being taken for a ride.
and in our workforce meetings that we do on a regular basis, where we have the sounding boards and everything else, the soft skills is a huge part of that. And I mean, we have devoted a ton of energy to it, just even in the career development area, where someone maybe has already graduated with an associate's degree, but they're really not prepared to go out there and begin marketing themselves, or maybe not prepared to do the other things that would make them a better employee, or, you know, to reach kind of their goal sets. So it's huge. It's a big part of what has to happen.
So I have a question for you then, because I keep thinking that so many of the immigrants or the non-native English speakers that are here in the States, that's the problem that a lot of them have, is they can't get past the interview process because of their pronunciation. It's their delivery in more cases than it is their knowledge of English. But to try to get involved in like workforce and some of these other places, where I feel like it would do the most good, has been a hard entry, upskill. Some of these places like Upskill in Houston and Workforce here. So do you even see that that's something they recognize that would benefit? You know, maybe it's such a small percentage of their population that it's not anything they pay attention to. What I noticed is that most English speakers don't recognize the struggle that their foreign professionals struggle with to have their technical skills recognized, because their English communication skills are not at the same level.
So you're thinking they might be missing out on potentially good employees because of the lack of pronunciation at the initial interview?
A lot of them don't get hired because of that. And then a lot of them never move into other levels of management because they're stuck behind the computer.
So that's what you're saying, though, is that the company is missing out. So
the company's not using the talent that they have available, right?
Because we just interviewed at the school that I left. My husband left, and the person that they hired.
Patrick's trying to get his hand in.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a reservation. Sorry. So one of the things that we deal with every day, and I don't know how far you wade into this, but at a CMO level at these big companies, they will say things. We have an immense amount of data, right? But they'll say things like, no, I don't want to see any of that. Just tell me the answer.
Oh,
And we're very convinced it's because a lot of them cannot digest this information. Like they can't look at charts and graphs and tables and figure it out. And I think just basic, like, this is the difference between, you know, average and, you know,
there's a book called Numeracy that talks about how people, it's a really good book if you've never read it. I can't remember who wrote it right now. He talks about how people are completely incapable. We do not teach them how to interpret numbers. It is not even on the focus of schools.
yeah, and it continues up.
Numerical literacy. The book is called A Numeracy, but it's kind of along the lines of Freakonomics too, where, you know, you can persuade people if you present the data in such a way. And that, again, that also comes into where our library goes. It's like, how do you find the right information? How do you know that the data, but if people don't have those financial literacy skills.
Yeah, we found one of agency's favorite tricks. I'm pointing down the curve there to the former agency guy. You know, the joke is like, no, you just say the number loud, and then they think it's a good number. It's like 28%.
I think the working title for your book there is "Math Are Hard."
I'm gonna jump in as co-host for Maudie here. It looks like she's working with a Stoke member. We are at 10:04. I just want to respect everyone's time and Patrick's. Any closing remarks, Patrick, to round out our coffee and convo?
I'm looking through the notes I made when everybody introduced themselves, and I had something to say to everybody. So sorry. Lalanya?
Yes, hi.
There you are, over there. Professionalism in production, I think, is one thing, but everybody, and you've probably read this, and I think you need to rely on it, because just knowing you now for 60 minutes, authenticity trumps production every time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so people see through production, and what they're looking for is authenticity, you know.
Okay.
So I think you in your car like this is way better than a produced video.
I agree.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I hope that was worth your hour.
I think that was a really constructive hour, for sure. Thank you, everybody, for, you know, sharing about yourselves and participating, being here. This is our first Coffee and Convo after about a month, so it's really refreshing for me to see all these people.
How do you do it?
We'll be continuing it weekly.
Weekly.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's every Tuesday.
Got my day started.
Awesome.
Lacey, do people have my contact info? Or can it be shared?
I don't believe so. I can type your email in the chat if you'd like.
Yeah, feel free. And anybody, if you think I can help in any way, feel free to reach out.
And is there a way for us to get in contact with the other people? Like, I have a couple ideas for Jan. I have a couple ideas for Donna. Like, how would we, you know, get in contact directly with them?
I would say for now to put it in the chat. Put your email in there. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There we go.
Super.
And are the people that are in here also on like Slack, so we could reach out to them through there as well, or no?
On Slack?
Oh, not all.
That's not one I know yet.
Yeah, so not everyone is in the Stoke Slack channel, but
okay.
Yeah.
I sent a bunch of people LinkedIn invitations already, so.
Oh, perfect. Oh, you know, that's
cool.
probably the best way to maybe connect. I always forget about LinkedIn, and I shouldn't. Not great.
We also have a Facebook group.
Oh, Deanna. Is that Deanna Tab? Is that
yes?
Okay. I just see it. Okay.
All right.
That's a great idea. I don't use LinkedIn as much as I probably should, but I'm learning.
All righty, you guys.
Yeah.
Has everyone had a chance to copy and paste those email addresses? And we'll save the chat as well. So if, say, some of you are on the phone, you're not on your computer, you can reach out to me or Lacey. My name is Mari, Madi at stokedenton.com, Lacey, Laci, Lacey at stokedenton.com. And we'll share those emails with you if you can't copy and paste them right now.
Will these be on your YouTube channel as well, or what will you do with these coffee chats?
Yes, this will end up on our YouTube channel as well.
I have to go explore that. I haven't looked at that yet.
Definitely. And we also have some, what we were discussing earlier about making course content and everything. Julie James, one of our Stoke members, is doing a whole set of lunch and learns on that. So if you want to go back and look at those.
Yeah, she's excellent.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we're a little bit over time. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Thank you, Patrick, as always, for all
Yes,
the help.
absolutely. Thank you.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Great
Appreciate
ideas.
it.
See you next
Have
week.
a great week. Bye.
Thank you.